Finance Committee of the Oakland County Board of Commissioners, our regular meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. So would you please call the roll?
Commissioners Cavell,
Here.
Cowell,
Here.
McGillivray,
Here.
Charles,
Present.
Long,
Here.
Moss,
Here.
Markham.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Okay. Let's all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I see Chair Woodward has appeared too, so. Oh, you're not going to sit in? Okay. Oh, darn. Okay. Next up on the agenda, we have the approval of the minutes from March 22nd, as well as the closed session, March 22nd. Motion from Commissioner Moss, supported by Commissioner McGillivray. All in favor of approving the minutes of the previous meetings, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Minutes are approved. Next up is approval of today's agenda. Moved by Commissioner Long, supported by Commissioner McGillivray. Any additions or deletions from today's agenda? All in favor of today's agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, our agenda is approved. Next up, we have public comment. We welcome members of the public to join us in this first public comment to discuss anything on today's agenda. If you want to speak, please come to the end of the table, state your name, the community you live in, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Catherine Kennedy. I'm from Lake Orion. And actually, one of the things I saw pertained to the closed session on Brown Road, and I drove Brown Road this morning and went like this to try to capture some video because they have destroyed the entire woods on Brown Road, but they have a sign that says special land use proposed. So why would you tear down entire woods when you're proposing a new land use? So that's my first comment for the day. It's a terrible video because I just went like this and aimed it towards the woods. But I don't know if it's connected with the item on the agenda, but I did happen to notice it was a Brown Road agenda, and we have a lot of destruction of our property without reason. We have to do an inventory of our real estate assets and business assets that already exist before we allow anybody to change zoning anywhere in the county. We need to be reusing what's already there, renovating what exists, rather than allowing them to destroy the natural beauty that we have. In Lake Orion, we have an 11.5 acre parcel, and another one was multiple acres, I don't remember how many. They're trying to put in for multi-unit apartments and townhomes. Why? We already have too many there that are empty. So I'm planning to collect citizens to go door to door to figure out exactly how many empty places do we have that you're trying to push all this additional, I thought I saw 11,000 units of housing for what? So that's my first comment. Secondly, I'm a little puzzled because this agenda is the first time I've noticed, and maybe it's just a oops, and maybe I'm just reading things into it that don't exist, but I did not see a consent agenda or regular agenda identified for any of the agenda items. Now, most citizens don't understand that consent agenda means at the prior committee, everybody agreed, and if it's a regular agenda, somebody voted and thought it was not a good idea. And given the fact that the committees or the subcommittees are so small, a one-person difference can be a big percentage difference. So I think it's a very important distinction to always know when we come to next committee, was this approved 100% by the prior commissioners, or was this something that somebody didn't think was a good idea? Maybe it needs to be reworded to make it better, but that's an important thing for the citizens to know absolutely, especially given the fact we get so little time when often agendas might be there, but with no packets or documents attached. it really doesn't count, in my view, as far as full transparency to the public. So that is actually, I'd like to get clarification on that. I also see there's a lot of contingency report, which I've figured out, thank you, Ms. Means those are the differences from what we thought we were going to budget and what we actually spent. So that's actually an important report, and I would actually love to be able to meet with the staff, because I've been told that sometimes my data is inaccurate. I do not ever want to be inaccurate, but frankly, I don't do this for a living. I'm a citizen. I don't get paid a thing.
Okay,
And
Ms.
I'm trying to
Kennedy,
rush through
your
it.
3
but
minutes are up.
Thank you very much.
Thank
for the
you.
time.
All right. Is there anybody else that wants to address us from the public at this time? Okay, seeing no one, I will close public comment and we will move into communications. First up, we have fiscal services, the communications contingency report, fiscal year 2022 through 2024. And today we have Lynn Sonkus from fiscal services. Good morning.
Good morning. So this communication is to give you a status of the various line items that are in the non-departmental transfer section of the budget to show any utilization of amounts that pertain to resolutions already adopted by the Board of Commissioners. So the only thing that I saw on there that changed from the last contingency report is we did have some utilization for the miscellaneous capital outlay for various furniture replacements that are used, and we budgeted in non-departmental. And as those smaller needs come up that were not taken up with the budget, then we can appropriate it. It's just a reappropriation of existing dollars from non-departmental to the respective department that made the request.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions for Ms. Sonkus this morning? Commissioner Charles.
Hi, Lynn. It's always lovely to see you. I would like you to tell us, if possible, what would be a good question for folks who don't often look at this document to ask. So like if, we have audits, there's certain types of questions that are good to ask. If you don't mind, is there any question that we as a good commission should be asking about this document?
Well, I think maybe we could have a sit-down session I think there needs to be maybe a better understanding of what the document is utilized for. The General Appropriations Act does allow for certain line items to be administratively approved, and that's what the contingency report is also allowing. And then it is specifying any of those resolutions that the board authorized to utilize those dollars. For example, with the it's called the contingency packet, that's what we refer to it as, but the contingency line item within the non-departmental general fund tends to be utilized more for adjustments that are made for law enforcement contracts. So if we have a law enforcement contract where they expand the number of law enforcement personnel within a community, the initial acquisition for the vehicle comes out of that contingency amount. And then it is incorporated into the law enforcement contract rates. There is also a section, the equity section at the end of the contingency report that shows all of the county's fund balance broken down by the various assignments. So, and I think if you recall from the end of last fiscal year 2021, that got consolidated into some higher level summary buckets, if you will. And then it does show here's the beginning balance and all of the resolutions that have used any of that assigned fund balance or specified fund balance during the fiscal year to date.
So I appreciate that response. And then in terms of anything that there's a parenthesis in terms of a decrease or increase, are there any percentages that we kind of assume as triggers to make you want to look deeper into anything from your perspective?
So, I mean, that's really up to the administration and the board to make the determination on what they're going to utilize equity for. But there is a limited amount of, I'll say, the contingency appropriated line items, and they tend to be used for the smaller or more routine things, like I said, for the law enforcement contracts. If we had someone come through and said we needed to replace all of the furniture in the courthouse, miscellaneous capital outlay would not be the place that we would do that from.
Gotcha.
It would tend to be the smaller projects or dollar amounts.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Anybody else? I need a motion to receive and file, or Commissioner Cavell, did you have a question?
Yeah. First, thank you, Lynn, for the education on the contingency report. Commissioner Charles, thanks for the question. On page 9 of it, there's extension of temporary increase in rate of overtime pay to reduce employee mandatory overtime hours. I don't fully understand that, especially
That's the sheriff's.
right. But if you look at it, is it just a typo of when it was approved? And I thought we were doing the temporary overtime in chunks of like $200,000 to $500,000,
Which
not
page
$2
are you referring
million.
to, page 9? Of
Yeah.
the contingency packet?
Yeah. And just want to understand what I'm missing. That's all.
So that is, yeah, that might be a typo on the, are you talking about the $2 million?
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be, that is related to the, there's a wrong description there. That is related to the body cameras.
Oh,
The body cameras that were approved on December 30th.
right. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that will get that corrected.
Yeah.
And there's a specific resolution that was adopted, 21-529 on body cameras. That's
Okay.
what that $2,056,000 is for.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, 2 million here, 2 million there, adds up to real money
Right, and
eventually.
there was a separate resolution that approved the extension of the
Right.
double time.
Right.
And that also utilized plan use of fund balance that was being used from, the sheriff's office had previous, from 2021, had favorability from their personnel budget, and that's what we were using previous year favorability to continue that double time.
Understood. Thank you.
And just to clarify, we're paying double overtime because prior to that, we were forcing sheriffs to work mandatory overtime, and the thought was if we actually offered more pay, we'd get more people who did it voluntarily, and I believe that has been the effect. Is that correct, Major
Yeah, that's correct.
Wondrop?
And it's just on the weekends only.
Okay, okay. So I'm glad to hear that that solution helped. Okay. Commissioner Charles?
So with that correction, I mean, receive and file, do we receive and file with the correction?
Yeah, you want to make that motion?
Okay. Yes, please help us. That's the right way to go about it. And with that motion, correct the date or just that whole column? I just want to make sure I understand. Because it says 12/30/2022, and I thought that was what Commissioner Cavell was.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it should be 12/30/2021, right,
And the description is different.
right, right.
So
So
it's
it's a
the
different
description
thing.
that's the problem. That is the amount for the body cameras.
So we can receive and file with the change noted, and then staff will follow up to get a updated version
Yeah,
out
we'll,
to commissioners.
we'll send that out today.
Okay, good, thank you.
Madam Chair, can I just add on that, just so everyone's aware, we did get the $1 million earmark that Senator Staffenall's office put in the budget. So when the budget was approved by Congress 2 days ago, that $1 million earmark was in there.
Oh,
So now we're trying to figure out with Staffenall's office and the Department of Justice, how we'll utilize that. But that was good news. So we have that $1 million if we can continue to use it for the body.
okay. Good, excellent.
And that might not have been audible for the audience, because I know these mics don't pick up that far away, just for the record.
Sure. Ms. Chambers, you want to come to a mic and say that, please?
Sure. I just wanted to let the Board of Commissioners know that we did receive the $1 million earmark that the Sheriff's Department put in for the body cam package in the bill that passed Congress a few days ago.
Excellent. Okay. With that, we have a motion. I need a second. Commissioner McGilvery? Any other discussion? Okay, please call the roll. Prompt the vote, right.
Can I just say real quick, what are we voting on? Well, I just got here.
Number 7A, the contingency report.
Okay. It's good to know what you're voting on.
You can abstain from the first vote if you feel not prepared, if you want.
Yeah, I can abstain.
Yeah.
Yeah, for this one. Thank you. I don't know.
You can do a voice vote. It's just a receive and file, but you can do a voice.
Oh, it's just a voice vote?
It's just a receive and file.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Because I have reviewed
Since
stuff. I
I
just
can
don't.
put it in for you.
Okay. So everybody else has voted, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I haven't.
And my thing didn't prompt, so I'm still a yes for now.
Why don't we do another vote? Just to-
I'll
Okay,
reset it.
refresh it. Did you join meeting? Were you able to join meeting? Okay.
Yeah, they're getting multiple requests over here.
Oh, no, it just kind
I
of.
just reset it.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah, it's different now. It's colored.
Yeah, go ahead and just click on which, however you want to vote. We'll do a little refresh. And there you go.
Okay.
And now you can
Perfect.
vote.
Yeah. Just wait for-
The refresh button is your best friend.
Yes.
That's too easy.
Okay, Madam Chair, you have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. Next up, we have item number 8, which comes to us from the Legislative Affairs and Government Operations Committee. Item A, Parks and Recreation, resolution requesting the Oakland County Parks and Recreation Commission to submit proposals to utilize American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds to make investments in park and outdoor recreation infrastructure and address the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. It says here Commissioner McGilvery will be presenting, but I see our Parks Director, Commissioner Ward, over there. Motion by Commissioner Moss. Commissioner Long, supported. Good morning, Mr. Ward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members of the committee, appreciate a few minutes of your time and the support of so many of you and the introduction of this resolution. There's been a change, as was noted by the chair when she read off the title, from the Legislative Affairs and Government Operations Committee, moving away from an assignment to this welcoming proposals. And so there's a brief PowerPoint printed off at your table that walks you through this to a certain extent. What we will be doing is submitting a total of up to $10 million for improvements in Oakland County parks and address COVID impacts to our park system. And submit up to $5 million for one-time investments targeting disproportionately impacted communities. So each project would have to run through the preliminary examination, the eligibility assessment. We would have an opportunity to work with funding partners, identify those funding partners, and hopefully come to you with specific proposals that are well-designed, well-thought-out, and have additional support. And so, just to give you a bigger picture, we have a, greater understanding, especially coming out of COVID, that parks are essential infrastructure that provide tangible and measurable benefits to our residents, including their physical and mental well-being, improved environmental air and water quality, supporting economic growth and property values and social cohesion. And I think, as all of you know, and all of us experienced during the pandemic, that parks received a tremendous amount of increased attendance and participation at a national level, state level, and county and local level. We had more than 25% increase in attendance here just at Oakland County parks. Our priority focuses identified right now are to, in terms of our county park improvements, we are zeroing in on 3 parks that do serve communities that were disproportionately impacted and have had historical disparities in access to recreation: Catalpa Oaks in the city of Southfield, Red Oaks in Madison Heights, and Waterford Oaks in Waterford Township. In terms of looking at increasing access in those communities that were disproportionately impacted, working off of the eligibility criteria that's in the ARPA guidelines, we've zeroed in on a few cities in Township: Oak Park, City of Pontiac, and Commissioner Charles and our team met with Oak Park yesterday, and Commissioner Powell helped facilitate a meeting with the City of Pontiac, and we've started those conversations to really get a sense of what those communities have in mind and what their priorities are, so we can develop these proposals. So really, Hazel Park, Royal Oak Township, and Southfield City are also on the list. Countywide, we'd like to really zero in on measures that would improve health outcomes. There are a few ideas there. There's a Parks RX partnership program that's modeled on a national level, where parks organizations work in partnership with healthcare providers, where the healthcare providers actually write prescriptions for people to get out into nature and enjoy parks, and then it's incentivized for individuals that participate. Expanding access to physical fitness resources and equipment. Transportation, we have this Wheels to the Woods program. We can't always bring the parks to people, so we can sometimes bring people to the parks. And proximity is a real issue in terms of access. So setting up regular routes for transportation and going to those communities that don't have close proximity to our parks is a priority. And a mobile nature center. We have 2 wonderful nature centers in Oakland County parks. But it's not always as accessible for all communities to get to those, especially schools with funding reductions and many different demands on their resources. If we could have a vehicle where we could bring those resources directly to students and to the communities, I think we would be able to have a measurable impact in improving access. And then finally, just in terms of resiliency of the entire recreation infrastructure, we certainly experienced with that increased participation, increased maintenance needs. We had to do so with less help than ever before due to the labor market issues. So there's been some impact on our system. We've also been struggling with workforce issues, and we would like to vet out the idea of a scholarship program to encourage students to work the entire season and come back and stay with us season after season. We have some potential water and sewer infrastructure needs coming, and are prioritizing green infrastructure investments. And of course, you all know about the farmers market, which is a wonderful facility and also serves as a great distribution point for fresh food for citizens of the county. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you might have. But again, appreciate your time.
Airplane.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Don't know what that noise was, but anyway. Okay, I will open it up to the commission. Commissioner Long.
Good morning, Kristen Fell. So this presentation is a little different than in parks, so I just want to make sure. So on the page, whatever, that says one-time investments, that doesn't mean we only can investments in those out parks, City of Pontiac, correct?
Well, I think it is a little different. There's been some change in conversation since Parks Commission met, and I want to express my appreciation to Chairman Woodward and Deputy Executive Carlson for helping to bring this together to something everybody can support. That ties back to the eligibility requirements within the ARPA guidelines, and we're open to expanding beyond those communities, but there are some direction that's given within those ARPA guidelines where you can make investments, especially in capital improvements. They have to be centered in communities that were disproportionately impacted. So.
All right. Well, I am a little concerned. I know the ARPA has the rules, but then if something is very needed in Independence Oaks, I'm a little concerned, that we couldn't do it or something. So that is different. Those cities listed than what we've seen. So I just want to make the commission aware that we didn't see that in parks that target only the south end. Thanks.
Okay, so again, we'll look towards where we can operate within the ARPA guidelines, and if we're able to eligibly make those expenses, then we'll do that.
Okay. Commissioner Kowal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So now I'm confused. We have 2 separate buckets, but to me, that sounds like they're essentially the same. So what separates it? Because the 10 million is going to go for disproportionately.
Well, so yeah, thanks for that.
10 million. So I mean, we've got 15 million. How you're dividing it up is not making sense to me.
Okay,
Thanks.
so the 10 million is focused in Oakland County parks improvements, and we've zeroed in on those 3 parks that are listed here as our priority focuses. And then 5 million would be to do partnerships with local governments that were disproportionately impacted.
Thank you.
Partnerships related to parks activities.
Yes, parks, recreation, access activities, yeah.
Okay. Like the bus service that you were talking about and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, and again, these are, These are just to give you an idea of the ideas that we're working through, and we'll be looking to the commission and county leadership for some input on, because there's far more ideas here than there are dollars available. So this is going to be a work in progress, but I just wanted to give you a snapshot of the things we're talking about.
Right. Okay. Commissioner Charles.
Thank you. Wasn't sure if Commissioner McGillivray was going to say this, but I will say that having attended these parks meetings for the last year or so, there's quite the investment at most of the parks. Rarely do you see an investment at Catalpa. I don't know about the other parks because they don't rise to the level of my district, but I can tell you that this is a welcome for that park that has been somewhat abandoned and left behind. So I am fully on board with it, and I appreciate Chris listening to that over the last few months.
Thank you, Commissioner Charles. Commissioner McGillivray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to let everybody know that in April, we're having a meeting where we can discuss visions for the future. And that being the case, certainly Chris has got a lot of ideas, but any of you who might have ideas for parks or programs or whatever it might be in Parks and Recreation, we would appreciate your input as well. You can certainly talk to Chris or myself, and we'll relay those onto the full Parks Board. So, as Chris mentioned, our parks had great attendance last year. Now with the weather breaking here in this past week, and I think we're looking for a banner year for attendance in our parks. So this money will go a long ways to try to get some, maybe a splash pad, maybe disc golf course, something new and different, hopefully, and so I think it'll work out well. So.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Moss, you didn't have your hand up. Commissioner Powell, and
I
then
just wanted to say, I was welcoming of this opportunity as well. As you may not know, every park in the city of Pontiac is not friendly to our citizens there. So any assistance that we can get, and I mean not, well, let me say it actually is probably one that is utilized. But we have several there, even in our neighborhoods, and they have not been cared for over the years with the local government. Funding has always been an issue there. So any assistance that the county and our executive staff, our executive side is going to help in moving this, our parks leaders, whatever you all will give to the city of Pontiac, we greatly appreciate it, because our parks have not been friendly for us and our constituents to use. So all of our parks need maintenance there. So any partnership we do with the county, I'm appreciative of it. And thank you, Chris, for leading the charge and getting me to coordinate that meeting with the leadership there. So our discussions has been positive. And again, anything the county gives the city of Pontiac, thank you, because it's needed.
thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else? Commissioner McGillivray for a second time.
Yeah, if I can. I think every community, that's one of the first things they cut in their municipal budgets is Parks and Recreation, because that's the easiest to cut. Can't cut public safety, you can't cut other things, so that's where they cut, and so many cities are hurting. We got a millage passed that included 10 cents more per thousand, and with the idea of giving some of that money to the local communities to improve their local parks, since they didn't have the money to do it. But quite frankly, I have to be honest and say that we're doing that this year. In fact, we'll be awarding them within the next couple of months to the communities that applied. But we have to change course a little bit, because the extra money that was raised by that increase in the millage is gone this year. I mean, it's with the grant program and SISMA grants and stuff like that. So we have to start looking real closely at what we do in the future. So I just want to let people be aware of that.
Thank you. Ms. Chambers, you had a comment you wanted to make?
I did, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to reiterate that we appreciate the effort around this amendment. What's most important to us is that these projects are going to be developed out and vetted, and then you all can evaluate the merits of the specific projects, which I think is really important. And the local match, you know, trying to get the cities and villages and townships involved in what they might like to do in their communities. That was most important to us, because we really would like to have a matching program with our local CVTs on parks or trails across the county. So that was a really important amendment for the executive office.
Thank you. So essentially, we are, you're putting in front of us a basic strategy, but we're not going to appropriate any money until we have real projects that have been vetted and come to us with all of the details.
Correct.
But you're letting us know that these are the sizes of the big bucket of money that we want to be thinking about. Okay. Commissioner Powell.
And I
one
was
more
going
time.
to say, thank you for that. I think the match is necessary. It actually gives the responsibility of the local municipalities to be accountable for their part, you know, and I'm okay with that. That was actually one of the things that I encouraged in our meeting, that at least for Pontiac, and if that is going to be an ongoing request, because a lot of our request is that anyway, right? That we request that the municipalities kind of match in a lot of things that we do with them. So I think that's great with the parks as well. So thank you.
I do too. I've, like many of us on this committee, I've been to, I think, virtually all of the parks except maybe, I don't think I've been to Groveland Oaks. But I went to Catalpa Oaks about a year ago because I had to be on that side of town and kill a couple of hours. I thought, well, I'm going to go over and check out that park. And I'm a walker. And I got to that park and I thought, this is it. You know, it's just basically a walking path around a bunch of turf. And, you know, it really is not enough to serve the number of people who live in that general area. And if you look at the Oakland County Parks map, where our parks are all located, so many of them are in the northern part of the county, and that's because of the way it's evolved over the years. Property was available and so on. But yeah, I think it's really important now that we do use this money, which is geared toward serving the communities that have not had the kind of services available. I think this is a very good way to go, and I will go back to Catalpa Oaks and hope to see a few trees and shrubs and gardens, you know? So, anyway, if nobody else has any other comments, we have a motion to receive and file their report. Oh, okay, so the vote is to recommend this to the board. So let's vote on that first. That's the motion Commissioner Moss made. So.
Support, or is it already support?
I'm sending the vote.
Recommending to the board.
Recommend to the board.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody's got dingers and things on their phones and, yeah.
They all sound the same though. They never know which thing it is.
Yeah, those.
Did we pass it?
That was like a-
Oh, that's why I'm sorry.
Okay. I need my brains here to tell
Madam
me.
Chair, you have 8 yeas and 0 nays.
Okay, thank you.
Carries.
Motion carries. Next, we need a motion to receive and file the report. Commissioner Moss, supported by Commissioner McGilvery. All in favor of receiving and file, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, we are receiving and filing the report. All right. Next up, we have Public Health and Safety Committee recommendations. First, we have the Sheriff's Office grant application with the Office of National Drug Control Policy for the 2023 High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Areas Program. And this morning, we have Major Wondrak for us. I need a motion. Commissioner McGilvery, supported by Commissioner Long. Good morning,
Yeah,
Major.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Paul Workman. He's a lieutenant in our training unit, so he'll be here on our second item. And I believe we have Gaia calling in case you guys have any further questions. This particular one is our annual grant application for our narcotics enforcement team. This is to receive $132,000 through the Michigan HIDA. All right, and as you know, our narcotics enforcement team consists of 26 members with 14 other agencies incorporated with it. This money will be used for overtime funding and cell phones. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
I will open it up to the board at this time. Anybody have anything for the sheriffs? Okay, seeing no one, let's prompt the vote.
Right.
Madam Chair, you have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Excellent. Next item we have is item 9B, Sheriff's Office Grant Application with Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan for the Community Policing Innovations Initiative Grant.
All right, this is a brand-new grant that we're excited to apply for.
Just wait one
Sorry.
second, I need a motion. Commissioner Powell, supported by Commissioner Kowal. Okay.
We're just so excited.
That's all right, I appreciate that. All right,
All right.
go ahead.
So
Thank
this
you.
is a brand-new grant that we're excited about. This is for a community policing series that will be presented through our training unit throughout the county. And this is for the amount of $698,966. And I have Lieutenant Paul Workman here to give an overview and answer any questions regarding the grant.
Thank you again for having me. So a little bit of background. Currently, we received a grant through the COPS program and started a community policing and education series that we hold on Mondays at the Sheriff's Office. I'm directly involved with that. It's with community leaders, several from the Pontiac area and other contracted areas that we contract services to. And what happens is we get together on Mondays and we talk about several of the things that impact law enforcement and the communities. For instance, de-escalation, implicit bias, use of force, law enforcement training. All of these topics are kind of spread out through a 10-week span, and for 3 hours each of those 10 weeks, we discuss one of those issues. The point of that is that I can present on behalf of law enforcement perspective or perception that we have about law enforcement, and then I can receive feedback from our community members about their perception and how we can do things differently to kind of build back trust, transparency, and address some of the things that we've seen in society lately. It's been a very, very good program. I've enjoyed doing it. We have several leaders, including Department of Public Services here at the county, Barb Hankey. We have some local pastors from Pontiac area. We have some activists, for lack of better words, activists that run activist sites, websites. So everybody participates, and we come together and talk about these things in a forum that helps us build relationships. This grant is a supplement to that program, meaning it will be held differently, but will supplement the same type of philosophy. We want to take that Monday course basically on the road. We want to go travel to communities, bring that message to communities, and give those citizens a chance to come and deal directly with law enforcement, to discuss topics, dispel myths, talk about perception, how it affects the community, how it affects law enforcement, but we'll do that right in the communities. So this will allow us to buy equipment, have personnel on site, hold recruiting events, a driving simulator, a virtual machine to do simulation training or exercises with community, and just give a question and answer town hall with law enforcement. It just gives us an opportunity to take this stuff to the road and deal directly with our citizens.
Thank you. I will open it to the commission. Commissioner Powell.
I just wanted to tell my colleagues that I have been getting reports back from individuals who are in that program, and they have been giving great reviews about it. So I just wanted to share that. So when he said a couple of my local pastors, yes, they have called me, because of course I asked them for a report to make sure it's something that is, beneficial or on both sides, right?
Absolutely.
For you all and us. So, yes.
I appreciate that.
My colleagues, they have been giving great reviews for this program. Thank you.
Commissioner Cavell.
Thank you, Chair. So as we mentioned yesterday, this is a community foundation grant, but this is funds from the county that went to the community foundation. Is there any thought at this juncture, do you have any plans for making this sustainable since Hillary and Kyle are here?
I haven't addressed that. I mean, I can't tell you from my level that that's been addressed. It kind of came along pretty quickly. Over the last, I'd say, month, we developed the grant. I spoke to the personnel that were offering the money, and I spoke to Barb Henke, who actually brought it up to us. So there hasn't been any sustainability conversations at this point. I'm sure they will come relatively soon. Like I said, we had a short time frame to build the program, get the grant in, and then try to pair it up, because the next series, so the first series that we're doing on Mondays started in January, and it will last till April. We'd like to get this one started and run supplementally, so both will be running at the same time. That next group will start in June. So we're trying to get this hashed out before then, and so we can take this out on the road, and then we'll talk about sustainability, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner McGilvery.
Thank you. How do we go about picking which communities are invited?
So part of this grant, let me back step a little bit. For the background, the one that we're doing now, I sent out just notices. I believe some of the commissioners got some. I sent it out to superintendents for schools. I tried to send it out to leadership because it was the first go round, and I wanted some leadership in there to kind of weigh the program and make sure we were doing what we wanted it to do. This next group, we're going to open that up to communities. We'll probably advertise it in the paper. I'll take in more applications that deal directly with citizens, not just community leaders or what we deem as community leaders. For the show on the road portion, for this grant, it also comes with a TTA, so somebody that is a professional in community policing or an expert in community policing. They will coordinate with me. We will talk about where we think the best sites will be. We will find locations. We'll talk with local administrations, local law enforcement, because we don't want to step on anybody's toes. But we will pick sites using her expertise or their expertise in conjunction with where I feel it will benefit us most from the Sheriff's Department, and we'll do it across the country. There's nobody that will be left out. Or the county, I'm sorry.
Big
Country would be
plans.
great. I'd like to go international if we can have the funds.
Commissioner Powell.
And I just want to let colleagues know, we did receive this by email, and they also put a hard copy in everybody's mailbox. So that's how we were able to know about it. just
What's
so
going
you
on
know
right now?
They did.
The Monday
Correct.
night thing? Yeah.
And I'm only saying that too because I know Pontiac tend to kind of get a lot of attention, but for the most part, no. They sent this free will to every commissioner. We all got this. So anybody from our districts could sign up.
And we do have people from outside of Pontiac that are
Yeah,
attending the
thanks
course.
for clearing
And
that.
like I said, including the director who comes every Monday and has been very helpful in providing some feedback back and forth.
Anybody else have questions? So I just want to clarify, it's not only the communities where we provide the police coverage, it's all communities across the county that you're going to be doing this with.
Correct.
So I'm from out in Novi, which some of you know. So you might potentially have a session out in Novi that maybe Farmington or Walled
Yeah.
Lake, just kind of generally, regionally, you're going to come out to all the different areas in the county.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good, good to know. And do you have a timeline that you are expecting to put this program together? Or this is just about asking for the money at this point?
Right, the timeline and the finalized budget, I guess, will be worked out with the TTA when they get brought on board. But the goal is to start it in June, and then I believe the program will run for a year based on the grant. And we'd like to do up to 2 events per month around the county.
Wow.
Or country.
Aggressive,
Month.
around the country, right? Okay. Commissioner Powell?
Oh, no, I'm okay
Oh,
with-
Commissioner Charles, you had your hand up, sorry.
I just wanted to make sure, because sometimes our community members, citizens, residents, don't always get a chance to review the document, and I just wanted to lift it up into the conversation that it's a focus on 5 areas, because quite frankly,
When I hear policing, it kind of gives me a little jolt. But what I appreciate here, because it's a verb, we work with verbs, is the fact that, number one, use of force will be one of the areas of interest for the initiative. Officer accountability, disparate enforcement and treatment, reimagining public safety, truth and reconciliation, and transforming police practices and forging new paradigms. I think that's pretty spot on. And so just want to make sure that folks who are listening were able to hear that. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Yeah, this is what I really appreciate about the Sheriff's Department. You want to be leading edge in the right way to police, to protect all of us. And we want to support you in that, and I really appreciate that that's the philosophy that our Sheriff's Department goes forward with every day.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. Commissioner Moss.
Thank you. What's truth and reconciliation?
Would you, Mr. Gravel, if you would like to, we had
I've
this
heard
discussion
that
yesterday.
phrase before, but not in this context.
Right, so we had this conversation yesterday. The way I look at that truth is, on Mondays, and again, I'm gonna fall back to that because that's what we've talked about now, or that's our history now, is the truth for me and the truth for somebody else are gonna be different, right? We have different perceptions on things, we come from different areas, we come with different baggage, we come with different ideas, biases, all those things. What this allows us to do is talk about that truth to each other, to hash out some of those things, to get perspective and to accept perspective from other people and to just actively listen. It doesn't mean that we walk away agreeing on what every single thing should be or what every stat, because truth can be different depending on what stats you look at or what database you draw those stats from or what media report you're drawing your information from. So we open that up to kind of break down those barriers of ideology or myths or whatever the case may be, and we talk about it openly. And then when we leave there, we always spend time at the end of the day, how is this information, or how is your perspective, how is your truth and my truth, how can we combine those things and work out a resolution or a reform or a way forward from that discussion? So that's the best way I can explain it. I think that's how I explained it yesterday as well.
Okay, thank you.
Got to have the conversation before you come to a conclusion.
Right.
Okay. Anybody else from the commission? Seeing nobody, let's go ahead and vote on recommending this to the board.
Interesting phrase.
Closed session.
Not yet.
Madam Chair, you have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you all for your support.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you, guys.
All right, next up, we have item number 10, department recommendations. 10A is management and budget, resolution American Rescue Plan Act spending authorization for county operations from April to September 2022. I need a motion. Commissioner Charles, supported by Commissioner Moss. Good morning, Mr. Jen.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'll give you the short version of what this resolution does, and then the somewhat longer version. This resolution would provide approval for spending authorization for spending a portion of our ARP dollars on continuing operational costs that the county is incurring because of COVID that aren't able to be funded by other funding sources. The slightly longer version in terms of the budget mechanics, the adopted budget included an appropriation of $5 million for this purpose. Out of that $5 million, the Pandemic Committee approved spending allocations of $4.2 million to cover the first half of the fiscal year, so October through March. We have, based on spending to date and based on anticipated needs for the second 6 months of the year, April through September, we've evaluated what level of spending is needed, for the full year, and we think that number is $8.1 million. So we're asking for an increase in the appropriation from $5 million to 8.1 million, and then we've laid out all the expected spending allocations. Our plan going into the fiscal year was to try to limit the amount of ARP dollars used for county operations to $10 million. So we've managed to come in about 20% lower than that. The allocations are laid out in a table. Again, in some cases, the allocation is higher than for the first half of the year if we expect needs to be higher. In some cases, it's lower if there's been lower spending in the first half of the year. There are no, sort of new items here. Everything is a continuation of things that happened in the first half of the year. I was going to say one more thing. That slipped out of my head at the moment. So that is that's the high-level overview. We do have, folks from each of the departments that would receive an allocation here. If there's detailed questions on any of the items, I won't do a line by line, but we're happy to answer questions.
Okay, I'll open it up to the commission. Did we get a motion already?
Yes.
Okay, so Commissioner Long.
Okay, so on your, I think this is the allocation page that does the 1 through 13. Am I on the right page?
Yep.
Okay. So I just forget, and I should remember this. On number 5, Little Oaks, the county owns that, correct? Or is it run by, I forget, because I actually had a son go there many years ago, dropped him off. But is it county owned or is it private owned?
The facility is county-owned. The operation is via contract.
Okay, and then that is still okay that it's a contract, obviously, right, for ARPA money? It looks like we're giving $270,000 for it. Not that I'm saying that was a good program, but I'm just wondering with the private company owning it.
Correct. We have April and Stephanie here, if we want to talk about it in detail, but, effectively, we're providing some short-term support to ensure that the child care services can continue for essential workers that need it, and then I think evaluating, what the long-term future is there.
And then that's what I was gonna ask, because of COVID, is enrollment way down with people working at home from the county, or people starting to get, that's what I'm asking. It used to be very busy. It's a great, I think I dropped off 2 children once a week for a few years when I first got elected when they were young, but.
So the question was, is enrollment down?
Yes, is enrollment down? I mean, so obviously that would be why they would need a subsidy, if enrollment's down. That's what I'm thinking because of the parents working at home, so.
The short answer is yes. However, one of the reasons enrollment is down is because they can't take in additional children right now due to staffing issues.
Okay.
The childcare industry is impacted nationwide right now. So if they could acquire more people to work in the center, it would allow them to have more availability for enrollment.
Okay, so that's a staffing issue too, and then kind of both probably when it started.
Yes, and then also add to the fact that we had to lower classroom sizes during the peak of COVID. So
Okay.
it was a combination of all 3.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
Thank you.
And we have received an amount of state funding that has lowered the costs here in terms of the use of county ARP.
Well, I just know it's personal experience, and I was only here, did it once a week or whatever, but if someone full-time, it is very convenient, so, and it was excellent staffed and excellent, daycare, so. All right, thank you.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Moss?
What, defer?
No, I call on you.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Okay, so we're talking about money in the amount. You're basically, it's like, you're talking about basically 5 million, right? That's what we're, 5 or the 8.1?
The 8.1 will then be the appropriation for the full year.
Right, so all these are out of the 8.1.
Correct. So the first column of numbers shows, what's been approved as allocations for the first half of the year. The second column shows the allocations for the second half of the year. We get to the total of 8.1.
Right, and these are out of, these are out of the year. The far right column is the year. Great. Okay, so I'm looking at it, and I see in the total allocation column item number 8, which is continued contractual assistance for ARPA eligibility determination, compliance reporting, and project management, which out of the 8.1 is basically 9.8. Basically, we're spending 9.9%, almost 10% of this, of our grant on complying with our grant. In other words, we're spending the money to you know, we got to spend the money to spend the money.
Right, so I mean, that's a true statement in terms of the magnitude and the percentage. You know, I would frame this in terms of the total of 244 million. I mean, these folks that we have on contract to provide technical assistance and make sure we're spending, you know, all of these dollars in an appropriate way, are vetting things across the full 244 million.
Oh, no, I'm always in favor of appropriating appropriately. The deal is that I'm just pointing out that to comply with the regulations of the grant, we have to spend 10% of the money we're getting for the grant to comply with the regulations.
Well, as a percentage of the total of 244
Okay, 240.
million, it's a
Okay.
much lower percentage.
Yeah, but excuse me, but still, yeah, I'm just pointing out that the cost of compliance does eat into the grant, and it's not your fault. It's mandatory. I understand that. It's nothing anybody at the county level can control. I'm just pointing it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moss. Commissioner Cavell.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to say about the childcare question. We've had a work group working on childcare, and you'll see that Little Oaks is a microcosm of the 800 other childcare centers in Oakland County, so just be ready. And I also wanted to give credit where credit was due. Kyle, thank you for responding to my needling emails yesterday about this thing and exactly what Commissioner Moss said, so I appreciate you taking the time to do that and help me learn this. That's all.
Commissioner Kowal.
Thank you. I'm going to kind of follow up on Commissioner Moss's comments. I guess, why do we need to continue to have Guidehouse guide us with expenditures that we've already made, and they've already said it's okay to follow ARPA guidelines to spend it like that? I mean, hasn't that already been determined?
Well, that's an ongoing process. There are, projects that have been vetted and approved by this board. There are projects that have been vetted and are pending consideration. And then there are new projects coming in. So, at this point, we've, I think only 1/6 or 1/5 of the $244 million has been appropriated. So there's still some work to be done. There's also work on the back end. Compared to CARES, the reporting requirements on these dollars are much more intensive in terms of, having to report performance data in terms of outcomes, and demographics, impacted by each program. So we also need ongoing contractual support to help manage that reporting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Charles.
Thank you. Line 7 speaks about conference room upgrades and just making, well, at least inquiring as far as how we're ranking and deciding. And, we should start at home. You always want to get home right before you go out and get other things right. So just a little plug there. And then line number 11 is really my serious point, which is this particular contractor just leaves me a little concerned. I'm curious about quality control. I dare not say it would be me, but are we testing these meals on a weekly basis for consumption? And things of that nature is my inquiry. And it is 1.5. Aramark is a huge, huge company. Everything from rugs to uniforms to food to everything in between. So I know they're kind of monopolistic in a way. I heard amen from the gallery, and so I just want to just ask you about this is not an extension of a contract. This is just saying, hey, we think we might need these additional expenditures. And of course, at some point, you guys will come back probably with regards to contracts to really dig deeply into the service quality, right? With that particular company, number 11.
Right, so these are additional costs being incurred because of the change in environment in the jail and to reduce the spread of COVID. I can't speak to the specifics of sort
So
of
they've asked for
internal
more money.
oversight. I don't know if someone from the sheriff's office is still on the line, but
Yeah, so I'm just curious.
Gaia's here if you want me to comment.
Yes, please, Gaia.
Please do, Gaia. Good morning, Gaia.
So, good morning. So the earmark contract, it's been dicey throughout the whole pandemic because obviously the jail never shut down. We still have to feed the inmates 3 times a day. So we work with them. I mean, we're working with them more closely than we ever have in the past on daily meals, how we can meet the nutritional guidelines, the medical guidelines, the religious meals. This has been no small task. So I have one of my employees that has spent an inordinate amount of time working on this with them. Obviously, our whole business model for them has changed because we used to use inmate workers. So we had, I want to say, upwards of 40 inmate workers a day. We used trays that were able to be washed. Well, now we went to disposable trays, different types of meals to still meet all of those caloric and nutritional and medical requirements. It's just been a huge challenge. So we haven't been able to live up to our side of the contract per se because we haven't been able to supply these inmate workers. They just haven't been available throughout the pandemic, depending on quarantine or sickness or even just availability of them to be able to provide the work. So. And then to answer your other question, Earmark is up for renewal. We'll probably be going out to bid. I think it's later this summer, so you'll be seeing that in the near future.
Thank you.
Is that it, Commissioner?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. Yeah, I share your concern about Aramark. Anybody else from the commission? Commissioner Cavell.
Yeah, just since Commissioner Charles brought this up, if I understand this dollar amount right, it's also reflecting, with the Aramark contract, it's reflecting the fact that when you go from using non-compensated labor, aka inmates and trustees, to then having to pay people for their work, that's part of the difference incurred. So it's just one striking thing to think about. Anyways, and the second thing is the Aramark contract that is coming up this summer.
Yes.
We have got, the county has given to Aramark for the last 20 years, right, Gaia? Since 2001?
Yes, we review their contract, but we go out to bid each time as required by purchasing policies and procedures and have, obviously followed the bid process to the T, and they have won the bid each time, so yeah.
Thank you. And also, a couple of weeks ago, when we had a failed motion to amend one of the sheriff's contracts, that was to figure out this sort of thing.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Commissioner. I would just like to comment that it's inappropriate for people in the public comment. Okay. Yeah, you'll have your time to talk at the end of the meeting, but this is really for commissioners and staff, so thank you.
It's an open meetings act question.
Yeah, I think, notes around, you can't do it.
Right. Right.
That's fine, I did not understand
Okay,
that.
it's all right.
Apologize.
Okay. Any other commissioners have questions? I want to touch on that subject of, jail trustees, because there are a couple of items here. Animal shelter is one where we used to use trustees in the animal shelter, but we're not anymore. And I'm curious as to whether that we plan on that being long-term, or are we going to return to using inmates at the animal shelter? I guess Gaia is...
Yes, I can speak to that. So it's all dependent on jail population. So it kind of, we don't know where the jail population is going to end up post-pandemic. Obviously, we're looking at, we track the jail population every day. So there's a number of things. So if you look at, there's, I think, at least 4 items on this list that impact 3 for the sheriff's office and then Children's Village and the animal shelter. So these trustee workers were utilized throughout the county to perform a lot of tasks and obviously save the county money. And since they haven't been available to perform those services, we've had to contract out all of them. So thankfully we have, access to the ARPA funds because this is the cost is, off the charts. So that's still our model if in fact at some point the population goes up and we're actually able to use them. But at this point, we don't know. I mean, we monitor it every day, and it's our concern going forward, too. So.
Okay, thanks, Gaia. It sounds like there's a broader discussion to be had about that going forward, balancing. Because we did end up finding the Sheriff's Department found lots of ways to work with offenders that didn't put them in jail, which is a good thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So then, as the sheriff would say, we have people there currently that we are afraid of, not the ones that we're mad at. So if the ones that we're mad at are on the street, they're not able to provide services. So.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Anybody else with questions or comments? If not, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
Madam Chair, you have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. So thank you, everybody. So next up, we're going to have our closed session.
No, we have a B for 10.
Oh, item B, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah.
It's kind of a big one.
Forget it. Sorry. Yeah, no. Okay, next item is item 10B, Management and Budget Quarterly Report Fiscal Year 2022, First Quarter Financial Forecast and Budget Amendments. Again, Mr. Jen, welcome.
Good morning. Again.
I need a motion. Commissioner Charles, supported by Commissioner Powell. Okay. All right.
All right. So I think the commissioners are aware, of our quarterly forecasting process, where we monitor and adjust estimates on both the revenue and the expenditure side to make sure that the budget is trending in the right direction and that we're not going to have any problems at year end. So these updated estimates in front of you are based on information through the end of December. So obviously still early in the year. These are all still very, very preliminary numbers, but the numbers are looking positive. On the revenue side of the general fund budget, we're expecting to collect $5 million less than what was included in the adopted budget. However, the majority of that is child care fund revenue, so that's basically offset by lower expenditures out of the child care fund. On the expenditure side, we're expecting expenditures across all departments to be about $15 million lower than what was included in the adopted budget. It's really widespread across all departments. I think a portion of that is still slower activities and hiring because of COVID. Although obviously we're hoping those things will pick up. As a reminder, we do include favorability factors in the budget to account for a portion of this that will get zeroed out toward the end of the year. So between those two things, we're a positive $10 million in terms of impact on fund balance. I would point out that there is a total of $33 million included in the amended budget at this time in terms of planned use of fund balance. A portion of that is because we do have a small structural imbalance this year, which with the upcoming budget process, our intent is to close that to zero. There were one-time spending items included in the budget that use fund balance. For example, the continuation of the road programs. There are carry forwards and encumbrances that were approved with the year-end report in terms of dollars departments didn't complete spending on for specific projects at the end of last year. And then there are a handful of resolutions that the board has approved in the first part of the fiscal year that rely on fund balance, including body cameras, the resolution for additional support around the Oxford situation, and then the smaller amounts that have been settled and paid that are related to the Raffaele case, not the Raffaele case itself. So those things will bring our fund balance down, at the end of the year, as anticipated, and is why we're driving toward a truly structural balanced budget going forward and being very mindful about how we use fund balance. So that's the high-level overview. Lynn can highlight some of the key amendments that are included in the resolution.
Okay, so with the resolution itself that starts out on PDF page 67, most of the amendments that are being recommended are what I'll refer to as cleanup amendments, meaning they're neutral. It's reappropriating dollars from one cost center to another, and one program to another, one line item to another, but neutral overall as it impacts the general fund. There are, however, a couple of amendments that do have an impact on fund balance, and this is in a positive light. On PDF page 68 of the resolution, the sixth whereas down is reducing the budget by $1.9 million as it pertains to, I think it was 60-some positions, part-time positions that were added in 2021 and 2020 and 2021 for part-time nurses. Those were to sunset in July 2021, and those were inadvertently included in the 22 budget. We're removing that from the budget itself to the tune of $1.9 million. And then back on page 67, there is the second to the last whereas there's an appropriation. This one is neutral, where it's taking roughly $29,000 from the Board of Commissioners budget towards a project to do some minor renovations to have more collaborative workspaces, and it was an initiative between board staff and working with facilities to make that project happen. As noted in the resolution, Resolution 15231 allows for the administrative approval of any projects $30,000 or less, and it just states that we need to include it in the quarterly forecast report. And there are quite a few amendments that relate to the health department, moving monies around to the appropriate grant ID. Again, most of those are net neutral. So you'll see a lot of amendments within Schedule A and Schedule B, but if you look at the bottom line, most of them are offsetting to each other, revenues and expenditures overall.
Thank you. I'll open it up to the commission. Commissioner Kowal.
Thank you, and I'm really glad you picked up on that $4 in the county executive's budget.
So, that's rounding.
Yeah.
Well done.
And that is related to the timing in which a lot of the reorgs went through, and then when we have to do the amendments to clean that up, so.
I'm not giving you a hard time about it, I'm just happy.
It was
I did not get $4. I'd give you 5 right now until you get change.
If you would, just kind of, I'd like to question the write-offs, perhaps a summary of, it was, let me see, the Housing Division write-offs, which I know Commissioner Taub used to question all the time, and also Parks and Rec.
So the county does have a write-off policy.
Oh, and there's another one too, yeah, Human Resources. Okay.
That write-off policy that states anything over $1,000 requires approval by the Board of Commissioners. We do obviously try to collect on any and all receivables that are outstanding. The one related to the Community Home and Improvement or Neighborhood Housing Development Division is actually related to someone who filed Chapter 13 bankruptcy, and so we basically don't have any provisions to be able to collect on that loan. We're stripped from the agreement. So that, in comparison to prior years, that is a small dollar amount compared to some of the, I'll say, 2-3 year ago dollar amounts that were being brought forward. The amounts for, is it for parks? These are smaller dollar amounts. We do make an effort to try to collect on these things, and sometimes the cost outweighs the ability to collect. We do have a collection agency that does take a percentage of the collection if we're able to pursue it. But again, it comes down to, is this something that is worth pursuing in the end? And these are the ones that go through parks are taken up at the Parks Commission and part of their monthly agenda before it is submitted to the board. And finally, the ones that are for HR, there are some arrearages that are for, that are relate to post-separation. The county is able to collect on some of those, but it again becomes down to the dollar amount. Is it worth pursuing to continue to try to collect when the employees have then since been separated? And this deals with the employee contributions required. They may have been on leave at the time, and if there's no paycheck per se, there's not the ability to deduct for the employee contributions. So that's a smaller dollar amount, but again, we do make every effort to collect on all of these items.
Thank you.
Commissioner Moss.
Thank you. Catching that $4, and you stole my thunder here. I was looking forward
about that.
I was looking forward to that, and I was going to give you a $5 bill. Okay, I just have a couple of kind of detail things, and then one, I don't know, maybe high level observation. I'm in the page 68, right under the under the whereas about the sunsets for the nurses. It just maybe because I don't know. FY 2024 budget amendment totaling $3.1 million recommended for the health division, correcting the revenue budgets to reflect their respective. What's that?
So there's what referred to as a grant ID number or a grant work tag number, which will be reflected in Workday. We set those up at each year. If it's an ongoing grant, this is the 2022's grant award. We have to set up a new grant ID for each year. And with the preparation of going to Workday, we made sure that all of those updates were made. So this is, again, just shifting money out of the prior project or grant ID into the most recent grant ID. So it's net neutral. But there's a lot of detail that follows behind that.
Yes, well.
More than the $4.
Yeah, that takes the award. Got another one. I think it's the same. It's on page 69, and it's 1, 2, 3, fourth one. Whereas up from the bottom, and it's whereas a fiscal year 2022 budget amendment. These are the big numbers. That's why I'm asking about it. It's 2.3 mil. Recommended for the health division, correcting the budgets of the local health department comprehensive grant. What's that about?
Yeah, and so that's, again, truing that up based on the latest award, truing it up between the different grants and spreading it out to the different line items according to.
And then over to page 70, the 1, 2, third whereas fiscal 2022 budget amendment of relatively small amount for the radio communications fund, as the budget is not sufficient to cover the interest portion of the debt. How come? Why not?
So the budget, this is a proprietary fund, and with that debt service, the principal portion is set up and is a balance sheet item, but the interest expense line item was not budgeted to cover that. They are making the payments. It was being twice a year, but it was the budget was not reflective of that for 2022.
Okay, thank you. Now, just one more thing. You're to be congratulated. This is an exquisitely balanced and figured document. My problem is that last week, like as far as I'm concerned, the world changed. when the CPI numbers came out from the Bureau of Labor Statistics that we are now, over last year in February, we have 7.9% inflation. It's accelerated. It was 0.08 on February. It was 0.06 on January. If you've been to the pump in the grocery stores, we all have, we know that it's going up. It does not appear to be abating. It can be worse because you get various figures about how much wheat comes out of the Ukraine and Russia, and it comes out of the Black Sea, which is now currently, those ports are now war zones. Those prices are going up. The problem is that right now, every dollar that we had is now 92 cents and dropping. I was listening on to the Majority Caucus last Thursday, and I know people from the administration were there, and I remember they were starting to mention that our employees represented particularly are aware of this, and they're asking questions. And if we are now going to be into a 7.9, I don't know whether it's galloping inflation or cantering inflation or whatever, and I have to go back to my dictionary from 1980, but it's certainly not walking, this means that everything that we put together based on the assumptions of last week, as far as I'm concerned, are out the window, because whatever metaphor we want to do, and believe me, I specialize in them, you're losing money, value on every dollar that you're spending. Everything you're going to get is going to cost more. Every employee is going to say, wait a minute, and they're going to want more. And I don't see in this anything talking about inflation, which is now a reality. So what I'm going to say is that it's all right to have an internally totally consistent document, but if it's unmoored from reality, you're floating up in the sky now, and it has no basis. And I've been in places, and I think you've been where the executive comes in, and you just look at them and go, what? So I can't vote for this, and the reason why is not because this document is anything wrong or bad in it. You caught like $4. I love it, except that outside these walls, the world is now completely different. And we walked through a door last week when we got these figures. And that's just me. But I don't think so.
So if I can comment.
Thank you, Commissioner.
There is certainly a high level of economic uncertainty right here, with the spike in inflation, being the biggest indicator. We're looking at all of this very closely as we start to move into the next budget process. We're going to be bringing you updated revenue estimates for next year next month. In that case, inflation actually works in our favor because of how Proposal A and Headley work. We're going to take a cautious approach to those revenue estimates. And we're going to construct a budget that's balanced and cautious in nature. Again, with the unanimous support of this board last year, we adopted an updated and clarified fund balance policy to make sure we're not touching our rainy day fund at 25% of our annual budget. So that's the big picture in terms of the immediate shock to costs. We're monitoring that very closely. Purchasing is watching where there are contracts that are expiring or rates going up. We haven't seen anything off the charts at this point. Office supplies cost more. There's the ability to absorb that within our budget. So we're taking this all very seriously and intend to provide prudent recommendations as we have more information and the process continues.
Thank you. Remember, you heard it here first.
Anybody else? Commissioner Cavell?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions about the charges for services, just if you could explain that a little more. It looks like the expected revenue is down. I was wondering, is that especially in light of all the offsets, are charges for services in general like a major part of your thinking when doing this budget and in your daily life?
Well,
And
charges
so
for
how much,
services, is a category that encapsulates a lot of things. Obviously, the county provides a number of services across all of our departments, so, it's hard to talk about it as just one thing, but we do, we've reviewed each line in each department's budget in terms of those charges and looked where they're trending. In a lot of cases, I think we've seen over the last couple of years that because of slower activity in some programs because of COVID, you have lower revenue from charges for services, but you also have lower expenditures, and those things sort of balance each other out. But, taken as a whole, it's the second largest category of general fund revenue after the property tax. So, we certainly keep a close eye on it.
Gotcha. And my second question was the Library Resource Center. This was something that happened before I joined the board, but can you explain that a little more to me? Like what the Library Resource Center is and the Library Fund?
So that used to be under the Board of Commissioners. There used to be a separate division within the Board of Commissioners that used to be, I believe, the Law Library. And it was being consolidated. I think there's a work plan that the board staff are working through to, I'll say, wind down the operations or because of other resources available. But it's now, I'll say 2 years ago, I think it all became consolidated. There is just one division under the Board of Commissioners. There's no separate formal library division. We can get you more, I can get you more information on the specific resolutions that consolidated that.
What I'm wondering is how much of a cost savings did that allow us to have when that consolidation happened 2 years ago?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can get you that resolution.
Okay, and that, it sounds like it still influences the budget today, that savings from 2 years
Well, there
ago.
is still some operational costs that are within the board, I'll call it administration division for running that program, and then we utilized some of that favorability to fund, or the board requested to fund that $29,000 project for some collaborative, and Patty's here, and she might want to speak more onto that.
Yeah,
I'm
please
assuming
do.
that's why you walked into the room.
My bad, Patty.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Our board staff chair, who can answer these questions.
So you're talking about the LRC consolidation.
Yeah.
So we
I
are
know
on
you
a
told me There
downslope.
was no money, but I was hoping they'd say something different. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we're on the downslope. There are still services being provided, but not in person and not physically unless there's some sort of dire need. We take emails and phone calls, and so we are on the downslope with the LRC, and at the same time, our one person that we have left managing that aspect of it is picking up duties from this office. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
So I want to know if it costs $1 million a year, and then we stop doing it, so now it costs $100,000 a year. How does that other $900,000 factor into our budget today? Where is that money to be found?
I'm
If at all.
not sure where that, I don't know what you're talking about in terms of,
So we would have, at the time when that consolidation happened, we would have made the budget adjustment at that with if it was a separate resolution or through the budget process. And I made a note to find that resolution or when that occurred, whether it was a couple years. I mean, it was pre-pandemic that
it was
started,
pre-me,
but-
yeah, so
Because you say
unfortunately.
downslide, so that means there's still a cost, but there will at some point not be a cost. So I'm just wondering when that'll happen.
So we've
and what that
decommissioned
difference
all
will
of
be.
the computers that are up there and the physical equipment, so those costs are starting to come down because we are no longer using them. They have
Right.
been there up until just, I don't know, they may still be there.
Okay.
So there's that, and the physical spaces being, emptied out, the books were donated or,
Right. Okay, so maybe it's an offline thing about how much it still costs? And
Yeah,
that
and
downslope, when it'll cost
yeah.
zero,
And-
and what that zero looks like.
Right, and as I mentioned when we were emailing, I can show you the budget pages.
Cool.
There was, actually, there were position adjustments because of removing some of
Correct.
those positions
Yeah.
several
Okay.
years ago.
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks, all right.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell?
I was just gonna say for my colleague, also, when you get a chance, because it was no, it was pre us hiring Patty, talk to Chris just to get that whole transition or the history.
Yeah.
And then the facts, of course, that come from her, but he can tell you, because he was dealing with that whole thing, just so, because I know how
Yeah,
you
no,
are.
thank you.
Yeah, so call Chris.
Thanks.
We all know how true.
And our staff
No,
also.
he be wanting to know. He be wanting to know from the back end to the front, the middle, so call Chris, and
Thanks,
he'll
yeah.
tell you.
Good,
Thank
good
you.
response.
Just to help Patty out a little bit.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions or comments regarding the quarterly financial forecast and budget amendments?
Donating as well.
If nobody else has anything else, let's go ahead and prompt the vote. Yolanda, did you vote?
She did.
Blame Ms. Long.
Yes,
We are all aware.
distracting. I was distracted.
Madam Chair, you have 7 yeas and 1 nay.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. With that, it's time to move into our closed session. Item number 11A. So I need a motion. We're going into closed session.
I want to do the motion.
Commissioner Charles?
I have oh no. I thought I was ready to go. Okay. I move that the Corporation Council.
No,
No,
just,
That's for after,
That's at the end.
Oh.
just a top thing.
this is just an
I move we go into closed.
I know. We move to go into closed session is what somebody has to move.
Yeah, we need a
Second.
roll call for,
Support. Okay, Charlie moved it.
Oh, okay. Charlie moved it.
Charlie moved it. Eileen supported it. Commissioner Kowal.
No. Commissioner Charles wanted to move it.
So moved.
All right, Commissioner Charles and Commissioner Kowal will support.
Okay.
We need a roll call.
we can do the proper vote to enter into closed session.
You can say it while you vote.
No, we have a smart aleck on the staff today. All right. Real smart aleck. Getting married.
Madam Chair, you have 8 yeas, 0
Wound
nays.
you up. Okay. With that, we are going into closed session.
Oh, they on the TV.
They have to change the thing to
Yes, we're ready.
encrypted.
We need the anybody who doesn't belong in here, so the commissioners and the staff who need to be here.
Like taking a seat.
I didn't see your shirt.
they do though. That ain't nothing new to me.
Okay.
That's what I said. They ain't do nothing but move that money. So I ain't got money.
Okay, now I'm ready for a motion.
Where you came from.
There you go.
Commissioner
Now
Charles.
Now to your motion. Now she can't find it.
The highlight is not helpful here. What am I supposed to say?
You're moving the Corporation Council.
Be authorized? Okay, so it is helpful. Thank you, guys. I move that Corporation Council be authorized to proceed in accordance with the directives discussed in closed session.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Powell? And go ahead and please prompt the vote.
Oh, she got it. Oh, you jumped in on your phone. I gotta go. Oh, that's all right. Oh, you took it off.
Did you get
It
it?
disappeared. Let me reset the vote. I'm sorry.
Off you go.
She messed up on the vote. You want to tell her on your way out?
For
Yes.
some reason, everything was coming in and it disappeared. Okay.
Chris is voting
As long
yes.
as yes, okay.
Yeah, I didn't want to leave that on.
All right.
Okay. You're good.
Go, 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 go.
I have to leave as well.
Safe travels, though.
Good luck, ladies.
Safe.
And 55.
Madam Chair,
That's right.
I have 8 ayes and 0 nays.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. With that, our next item is our second public comment session. You're welcome to come and have 3 minutes to speak on any subject, and please state your name and where you live. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Catherine Kennedy. First, I want to apologize for trying to pass notes to the out of order in the earlier session. But what I was trying to clarify, in yesterday's meeting at the Lago, which I'm not sure any of you were participants in, Woodward's amendment was moved forward for the Parks and Recreation resolution for the assignment of American Rescue Plan Act funds. And that did get changed at yesterday's meeting, at the 9:30 meeting. So I was unsure if anyone in this room was aware that the entire resolution got changed yesterday at 9:30. So that was what I was trying to confirm, because I've been told that sometimes my facts aren't quite correct, and I understand that, so I welcome, if I'm off on something, I honestly want to be absolutely correct. So a couple of things I'll move to the next item. The mental health grants are extraordinarily concerning to me. And one of the phrases I found in resolution number 22045 sets threshold for like a spending maximum, but can be exceeded if low income. Now, that's a really vague statement, number one. And it does set a maximum threshold, but it doesn't seem to apply necessarily. So I didn't see any clarification on when it would apply. It was just a rather vague statement in my view. Next thing, I didn't mention, Ken was here, and he did reference the small structural imbalance. I believe he's referring to the deficit and the lack of revenue was off by about $64 million, if I remember correctly. I might be off. I also would like to ask that you consider that the parks need a 3-year contract with the sheriff as a primary priority. I actually have not seen that get passed yet. And the citizens, no matter where they live, cannot enjoy the parks unless they have security. And in my view, that is the most important thing for our parks to be able to be enjoyed by all of our citizens. And I absolutely welcome focusing on those that have been neglected more. It's a great idea, but I do want to make sure that we have proper security from our sheriff department. And I think we should make sure that it's our sheriff that patrols our parks for the next 3 years. And I would really appreciate if somewhere along the line that proposal comes up. Next, Hillary mentioned $1 million earmark from sheriffs in the bill that just passed Congress a few days ago to be usable for the body cameras. My biggest concern, Please insist on privacy regulations for those cameras first. The 12/30/21 meeting approved the cameras but did not approve the radio necessary to operate those cameras, so it's minus a huge amount of costs that are incalculable at this point, I believe.
Ms.
but they would
Kennedy,
be
your time
required.
is up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? Hi, please state your name and where you live.
Hi, my name is Beth Felix, and I'm from Clarkston. Hello, Commissioners. I have been attending meetings here and there, and I would once again like to address discrimination. We passed a resolution to not discriminate against hair color and hairstyles. Yet, we are still allowing this county to discriminate against the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated, and we still refuse to acknowledge natural immunity. A large hospital system is allowing the vaccinated to be unmasked in some spaces, but the unvaccinated have to be masked in all spaces. I would think with the recent Pfizer documents being released and the 9 pages of adverse reactions, we could put a halt to this madness and let this be an individual choice. Because as you can see, there is a risk with either decision you make. Attorney Thomas Renz is one to really follow, exposing so much. If I were vaccinated, I'd be very upset that our government, state, county, etc., put propaganda out there calling this safe and effective. Our county, Oakland County, was giving out goodie bags to children who got vaccinated. Through Pfizer's own documents, they clearly tried to keep these side effects from us. We should all be angry over this betrayal at every level of our government. Now there is new FOIA requests that our U.S. government paid $1 billion to every major news network to only report good effects of the vaccine. Recognizing this misinformation, I feel it's imperative we put a stop to this vaccine discrimination in our county. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who cares to address us at this time? Seeing no one, I will call the meeting of the Finance Committee adjourned at 1:07. Thank you, everyone.